Well, it's 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. If Phil can lead us in prayer.
Let us pray. Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, God, we thank you, Lord, for this another day. We thank you for the beautiful day you blessed us with and all the blessings of life, God, both great and small. Thank you, Lord, for this community and what it means to me and what it means to everyone who's gathered here tonight. I pray, Lord, that you would bless everyone for making the effort to come out and show their support for this community. And God, I just pray that we would use this meeting tonight for your will and to make the best decisions we can on behalf of our city to help it to grow and be a positive light in this world, Lord. Now go with us, God. Be with all those who are affected by the pandemic, God. I just pray for them. I pray for our country. I pray for our leaders in Washington. And I just pray, Lord, that your will would be done in all of our lives. These many favors and blessings I ask in the sweet name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Everyone will join us with a pledge to the flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is to consider the agenda for adoption. There's a change on new business, item C, city center. The way Phil's going to present it, we're just going to combine item 1 and 2 into item 1. And there are no other changes. Do I have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. Carries 5-0. Next is to consider for adoption the following meeting minutes. The regular meeting of September 15th, 2020.
Make a motion. Second.
Please vote. Carries 5-0. Item B, the executive session meeting of September 15th, 2020.
Make a motion.
Second.
Please vote. Carries 5-0. Under item 6, we have a proclamation for Hispanic Heritage Month. Whereas Hispanic Americans represent a vibrant and thriving part of our diverse nation, and their histories and cultures stretch across centuries, and for generations, Hispanic Americans have played a pivotal role in our country's strength and prosperity. And whereas their spirit, energy, and leadership are woven into the culture of America, serving to enrich all of our lives and to remind us of all the ways Hispanics have helped shape our nation's character. And whereas we are especially grateful for the 1.2 million Hispanic American men and women who have answered the call to serve in our armed forces, demonstrating remarkable loyalty, bravery, and dedication to duty. And whereas the 2020 Hispanic Heritage theme, Heritage, Diversity, Integrity, and Honor, the Renewed Hope of America, invites us to reflect on Hispanic American service and contributions to the history of our nation. And whereas other contributions of Hispanic Americans include transforming industries with new innovative ideas, leading and inspiring movements that have made our nation more equal and more just, and enriching America's culture with Hispanic food, music, and traditions. And whereas America has always drawn its strength from the contributions of diverse people, in lifting up the Hispanic community, we strengthen our entire nation and help to create ladders of opportunity for all Americans to reach their greatest potential. And whereas throughout our nation, Hispanics are continuously advancing our economy, improving our communities, and bettering our country. And whereas during National Hispanic Heritage Month, we should renew our commitment to ensuring that our American society remains one where the talents and potential of all its members can be fully realized. Now, therefore, to honor the achievement of Hispanics in our country and community, I, Troy Brumbelow, Mayor of the City of Cumming, do hereby proclaim September 15th through October the 15th, 2020 as Hispanic Heritage Month in Cumming, Georgia. We got somebody to come get it.
Want to sit down, Eddie? Two or, all right, 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is old business. There is none. Item 8, new business administration. Item 1, alcohol ordinance update, information only.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, we're bringing this to you. A lot of times during the legislative session, we have things that the General Assembly does that will affect the city's code. This year is no different. The state has made a substantial number of changes to the alcohol code. They actually, it's funny, the mayor sent me something, and the same day GMA sent me the exact same thing. The one that was sent to the city attorney and the mayor were written the exact same way, but one of them said to me, said, your mayor, city council may ask you about this, and the one that was sent to the mayor said, you should ask your city attorney about this. So anyway, in your packet, we have highlighted some of the pretty significant changes that are going on that are going to affect our city alcohol ordinance. One is tastings. Tastings are now allowed at the state level to the point that the city doesn't get to regulate them anymore when it comes to bottle shops, package stores that want to do tastings. Deliveries, alcohol can now be delivered by grocery stores or package stores to someone, to your residence, or even possibly to your place of business. The entire permitting process, you guys know we stand up here in December and we talk about all the alcohol permit renewals. That is being taken away to a large extent from local control. It's going to be a centralized process. It's going to be done at the state level. We'll still issue our own permit to folks, but the process is going to be a state centralized process. There's a change for Sunday sales that we can take advantage of. We won't have to do another referenda. We could actually just do a change by resolution. And then there are some distance requirement changes that the city will be able to look into if it wants to do so. Because the changes are so significant, especially with regard to this new category of deliveries and the centralized permitting process, it really just kind of guts the middle of your alcohol ordinance. And in talking this over with your city administrator, Mr. Higgins, and your planning and zoning director, Mr. Morgan, it's our recommendation and belief the best thing to do at this point is just to do a new alcohol ordinance. It will be much more streamlined because a lot of what you've been doing, a big portion of your alcohol ordinance is in permitting. And so you don't have to make that decision tonight. You can still tell us, just amend it, just tweak it here and there. But we wanted to bring these things to your attention because there are things you're going to need to think about between now and over the next couple of months. For example, do you want to regulate deliveries? Do you want to have a separate City of Cumming permit for delivery drivers who are going to be going out from grocery stores and package stores making deliveries of these things? How do you want to handle the permitting changes in terms of, do you want to simply mirror the state process or have our own requirements that we have now? And then the Sunday sales issue. You'll be able to back up package stores and grocery stores and allow them to sell an hour and a half earlier now if you decide to do so. So those are some things. Some of them we're going to have to do. The permitting, we're going to have to make permitting changes one way or another. Others are things you can do. If you want to. I'm happy to answer any questions tonight, but it's just for informational purposes only. I drilled down that entire bill into about 1 3/4 pages here, so you can just really quickly look at it and see what's changing and what's not changing.
This goes into effect?
Some of it's in effect now.
It's already
Some of
in
it was in effect upon its passage. The deliveries, for example, you can get deliveries now. Restaurants can also deliver. So, for example, if you wanted to order a meal from Tam's, you could also ask them to deliver you a bottle of wine with your meal to your house. So it's,
So what are the regulations for that? Do you remember, are they marked cars, are they employees of the establishment? So it's not none of that's out.
the Department of Revenue hasn't published the regulations yet. The Department of Revenue is not actually going to be having a permitting process for delivery drivers. What they have indicated to us is that they're going to publish essentially a curriculum that everyone who is going to be a delivery driver is supposed to say that they have reviewed and that they know the rules. But there's not a separate permitting process or anything like that. The reason you can permit that, I'll give you an example of the way the two things in this law are different so you can see how it impacts your ordinance. This tasting thing, where now tastings by law can happen at a package store. For what it's worth, the tastings are very small. In a 4-hour period, you can't sample more than 8 ounces of beer, 5 ounces of wine, or 1.5 ounces of distilled spirits, and you can only have one of those. So you can only have beer on one day, wine on another day, distilled spirits on another, and you've got to spread out those ounces over a 4-hour period.
You still have to have a separate room and all
Nope.
that, no?
Well, it has to be separated, but we had a more restrictive ordinance than what the state is going to allow now. But for example, in that, there's no provision for us to regulate that anymore. We don't have the ability to say you can't do tastings or anything else. So that is the law. Package stores can now do tastings. The deliveries, the reason we can regulate it is because you can pass an ordinance saying deliveries are not allowed in Cumming. Because you can stop it, you can also regulate it. So you can, have some kind of criteria. Think about it, it's like our employee permits. We're still going to be able to have employee permits for the people who are actually going to touch the alcohol and pour it for people. The license to sell the alcohol the business has, that's going to be part of the centralized process. But you'll still be able to have the employee permit. Same thing for your delivery drivers. You'll be able to still regulate those. But in terms of what the state's requirements are going to be, they're just going to publish a curriculum or guidelines that the delivery drivers have to sign off on.
It could be a slippery slope if they go to delivering to underage.
Well, and that's,
What I mean.
so that's the rules, they have to promise they're not gonna do
Right.
that. But, who knows what's actually gonna end up happening at the end of the day.
Well, the sting operations will certainly change. They'll just have somebody underage request a delivery and see if they do it, right?
Yeah,
No, I mean, I think I'd like to look at the state, whatever they come out with before we decide how we want to regulate, if it,
in terms of deliveries or in terms of everything else?
deliveries in particular is, to me, the major change. I mean, obviously the tastings, that's just a deletion, right? From our.
Tastings is to an extent, because we can still regulate tastings at places like, we have a tasting, we had some tasting regulations with respect to restaurants and that sort of stuff as well. But to me, the biggest change is actually the permitting change. That's enormous. I mean, we're not going to be in a situation where we're going to be requiring people to post signs anymore. We're not going to have any kind of advertisement or notice requirements or anything like that anymore. That entire process is going to be gone from what we do locally when it comes to issuing alcohol licenses. That's a big deal.
But we still do you said we still do a permit?
You're going to print one, essentially. So what will happen is these forms, the whole permitting process is going to be online. You'll be able to click, fill out your information, submit that to the state. When the state gets it, they'll transmit the application to the city as well. And so then we'll get the application and we'll be able to look at it electronically, and then you'll still be able to decide whether or not, if you're going to issue the permit or not. But the whole process as it's been before, where you come in with your information and your distances and your plat and your advertisement, you have to we have regulations on the size of the font that you have to use. All that's going to be going away.
We need to have,
Permit it, they just don't apply.
Yes, they don't apply here. They apply to the state, yeah.
what do we need to have ready for January 1? I mean, are we gonna need to change things?
I don't know that we're in some kind of let me say this, if we're not ready on January 1, if we don't have a new ordinance passed by January 1, that's not necessarily the end of the world. I mean, in an ideal world, I'd like to see us have something in place on January 1, because we're not going to be doing the permitting anymore. And so I'd like to see the city in a position where we have whatever we're going to be using in place so that people can see it before then. So we cut down on confusion. I don't want people thinking, they have to still come in here and apply for a permit when they don't have to come in here and apply for a permit anymore. But I don't have January 1 necessarily as a drop dead date.
Well, we got plenty of time to get it done by then.
But how do we want to go about it? I mean, if we're all given different suggestions, it might get confusing.
Well, I mean, we can do like we typically do. I'm just giving you these things. I wanted you to know this stuff is
Yeah.
coming more than anything. What we typically do, and I'm going to talk about it in just a second with these open air market revisions to the zoning ordinance. We're going to do an informational only on as well. If you want, we can prepare something, give you something to look at, and then you can give us feedback on that. That's probably the easiest way to do it, to keep it streamlined so that we're not trying to achieve consensus, in a meeting.
Any more questions or discussion? Thank you,
Thank
Kevin. Number 2, Land and Water Conservation Grant Resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This is regarding a Department of Natural Resources Land and Water Conservation Grant that we want to apply for. The purpose of the item tonight is to adopt a resolution stating that if awarded this grant, the city of Cumming has the ability and the intent to fund up to 50% of the project. The grant provides funding up to $500,000 for approved projects, and the projects that would fall under this grant is a lot of what we're doing over at the city center as far as the stream work, landscaping, anything that's to do with watershed. So there's a lot of work we got to do over there, and we know we're going to be spending that money. So if we can apply for this grant, it could provide some funding that would offset some of our costs. So tonight I recommend that you adopt this resolution so we can proceed with the application process in obtaining this grant. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
In the application process, do you have to delineate what the projects are?
Yes, we have to send them a survey basically of what area is in the affected area, and it's already the area that we can't do anything in anyway. It's in the flood zone. So, I don't think we would have any problem down the line, this coming up, of it being a problem, us delineating that area to be perpetually park and passive park area.
So we already have like the surveys and information that we need.
Sure do.
Just gotta turn it over to them.
Yeah.
Cool. And it's 50% potentially?
It's up to $500,000.
Okay.
That's the max. And we have to match whatever we're awarded.
50/50 match.
If we're
That's up
awarded,
to
yeah.
500,000.
And we gotta do this work anyways.
Yeah, we're gonna be doing this work anyway. So,
That's great.
could be a good funding source.
I have a motion.
I'll make the motion to adopt the resolution.
Second.
Please vote. Carries 5-0. Number 3, Georgia Power request for an easement.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and members of council, and this is one that we can act on tonight, or if we choose, we can wait till the next meeting. But the purpose of this item is to seek your approval for granting an easement for Georgia Power. The affected area is 203 East Main Street. That's the Sinclair Station property. And there's a diagram included in your packet, a couple of pages down from here. Georgia Power has a distribution line located underground at this location and wishes to upgrade that line. I've reached out to the Georgia Power engineer. According to her, she stated that the property shouldn't have any major disruptions, that they should be minimal on the workday operations. The work will include a directional board and setting a pole and an underground conductor, and the job will take 5 to 7 business days.
Wait, they already have a line and no easement?
No, it's within 10 foot of the easement. That's the
Oh.
problem. The pipe, the line, anything 10 foot on either side, they have to encroach on that area.
I see.
Yeah. So as I was saying, we're waiting on Georgia Power to approve some work over at the city center, so it wouldn't disappoint me any if you want to wait till the next meeting to approve this.
Or if y'all approve it, I can wait to sign it. Till we get our meter for the lights for the school parking lot.
Yeah. Let's just wait.
That's fine with me. If you want to wait till the next, the meeting on the 20th, that'd be okay too.
So we'll just wait, if everybody's good with that.
That's fine.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Moving on, item B, planning and zoning ordinance amendment, information only.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this was an ordinance amendment that's been prepared for you to consider and think about over the next couple of, actually roughly the next month, because from a timing standpoint, we can't meet the Zoning Procedures Act requirement until your work session in November at the earliest. This would regulate open-air markets that would occur in the city of Cumming. We put some performance standards in there under section 113-292, or the proposed new section 113-292, for you to take a look at and think about. These would be primarily, this does not affect yard sales, a question that I had earlier. This does not affect yard sales. Those deal with residential areas. This does not affect the city's farmers market that occurs on public land. This just deals with open air markets where we have vendors coming in for like a weekend event on privately owned land in the city. I'm happy to answer any questions about this. I mean, this is the first time you've gotten it tonight, and you'll have almost a month to look over it and think about it, and we can certainly make any changes we need to.
This is a brand new, or we didn't have anything to,
We had nothing regulating this before.
where did you pull from some other ordinances, some of this stuff?
This was the product of a conversation that was primarily held between me and Scott Morgan, and then we roped Phil into it as well and got his input on a few things. The goal of what we had here was allow these things to happen, but make it so that we don't end up in a situation where we have people spilling over onto the sidewalk or the street. We don't want it set up so that there are like 3 or 4 or 5 of these going on adjacent lots on the same weekend, so that you end up with something like a mini festival going on one of our business corridors or something like that. We're trying to make it so that this can be an event that a business can host to attract people to the area, attract people to their particular business without creating additional problems, traffic problems, pedestrian type problems, or again, creating some kind of almost like a mini festival atmosphere. And I keep saying festival, and the reason I think about that is because, the Moonshine Festival in Dawsonville that goes on is a great event for the charity that it supports. But you could easily have a situation where without the right kind of regulation, you could have something like that popping up every single weekend, if enough people wanted to.
Well, what if there was something like that we did want to have happen?
You would regulate that separately. We could always deal with that. We could have an event. Well, we have the perfect place for it. We have a fairgrounds. That's the big difference, is we have a fairgrounds for something like that.
I have problems with several things here. Do you want that today or next time?
Either way, whatever you want to do, I would prefer to not have it on the night we're supposed to vote on it. So if there are things you want us to look at between now and then, you can go ahead and let me know now.
Okay. You've got open air markets limited to 15 vendors. I don't know how large the space would be, but I don't think you should limit it. Usually, you probably won't have more than 15 vendors, but I don't see limiting it. Then you say you've got to get a business license from the city of Cumming. I'd never heard of that, and I've been to tons of open air markets. That's $75 and you gotta come to the city to get it, and that's just something that people won't do. They'll just not go to the open air market. Now, if you want to require the person who's holding it to pay something, okay. But you've got down here, the fee for the temporary open air market is $200 per day per event. Now, that's pretty high. That would be $600 for whoever's holding this event. And then you're gonna charge the vendor another, well, they're gonna charge the vendor something to make that $600 back, and then you're gonna charge them $75. So basically, you're charging right out of having it. Because most people who do crafts, which I do, they're not gonna pay over $125, $200 for the 3-day event. The Moonshine Festival, if you pay early, it's $125 for a 10-by-10 spot. And they take care of all the city problems or the city fees or whatever. So if you can't get a spot for around $125, $200, you just don't do it because you're not gonna make any more than that, much more than that. So what you're charging is a little bit more than normal.
I agree on the number of vendors, limiting it to a set number, just because if you had something on 50 acres, it might be able to hold, it'd be harder to go up than to allow that many. Maybe it's they have to specify, or it's a per acre number, or, it has to somehow let permitting, however it's permitted, know how many you're gonna have and how big your property is and make sure it makes sense.
But believe you me, the vendors are gonna have enough space. If you pay for it, you want enough space.
Right.
So the space is gonna be limited by how big the property is.
On the $200 per day per event, where did we get that number from? Did we look
At the bottom, temporary.
No, I see it on there. I don't know, where did we come up with that $200? Is that just what we have? Is that
Simply a number.
comparable to other municipalities?
Well, I don't know that every municipality regulates these type
Okay.
of things. This was something that we were just trying to discuss, what would be a reasonable fee, for someone who is going to be having an event like this, and that was honestly just the fee that we
Yeah, I'm
came
just
up with for
wondering,
discussion
just using the Moonshine
But the
Festival
Moonshine
as
Festival's
example.
completely different, yeah.
I know, but it's come up, using something like that as an example, I just don't know. Councilwoman Ledbetter might be right. Those prices might be high. I have no idea. So maybe we need to research that and see if it's comparable to other
And other places
locales.
just don't allow these at all. I
Okay.
mean, that's what we're trying to get away from. Right now, technically speaking, these are not allowed in the city of Cumming. So if we do nothing, then these just don't happen. And so we're trying to find a way to allow them to happen.
Scott, say somebody was making jewelry and how long would it take them to get a business license? And how much does that cost?
Just want a business license for that? I mean, they just come in and
I mean,
we give it to them, we'd issue it to them right away, like it's just individual business doing that.
you would probably have to look at the zoning of the property it was being held on.
We have to verify that, we of course have to verify it, yeah.
So they would have to have a particular property that would allow their certain vendors if they were required a business license.
Couldn't do it obviously in residential.
Right.
And to get a
Kinda
business
difficult.
license, don't you have to have a sales tax license? Do you have to have a sales tax license?
I don't think that's something the city requires.
So I think, are we conflating, what Linda's bringing up, she's thinking more like craft festivals where you're having it, that's not what we're talking about.
But it could be.
Specifically. Well, like what I think Linda's talking about is stuff more like what we have at the fairgrounds and those type of events. That's not what this is addressing. Right.
So,
Well, that's what
here's
you
how,
had.
here's how this came up. There was a business in the city on Pilgrim Mill Road a couple of weekends ago that invited a bunch of vendors in to its location, and they set up, and then they were having essentially an
crowd
open air
fair.
market. That's what they were having. I mean, I don't want to call it a flea market because it's not a flea market. I mean, I have concerns that without some type of regulation, it could devolve into something like that, where something happens every single weekend and you end up, and everybody just knows to go to this place on the weekend. And that's my concern, is that we don't want to end up there. But what happened was this local business had an event where vendors came in, and some of the vendors had tents up that under our current code, they couldn't have up because they were too big, but they didn't know any better. Anyway, so we're trying to help out the businesses who want to do that, because right now, legally, they can't do that. And this place has another one of these events planned for November 6th. And so we're trying to help out this business by making it so that it's allowed. So
And the First
understand
Baptist Church has one
I'm
pretty
sorry?
soon. The First Baptist Church has a big one in November in the parking lot.
So understand, we're coming at this from a place of not trying to run these things off or anything like that. We're coming at this from a place of trying to make sure that if they're going to happen, that they happen in a way that is beneficial to the city.
But limiting in that it doesn't blow up into something unintended too, and I agree with that. But I think what I hear the conversation being is we're trying to figure out ways to make it a little easier, potentially even on the vendors.
Can you just make it where that whoever's having the open air market gets a permit for whatever amount per day, but then the individual vendors are falling under that one permit?
That'd be best.
Then you don't have 20 people coming to get a business license that they may use one
One
day.
time.
Maybe even that permit would kind of outline the types of vendors that they could have per the zoning code or whatever.
I think we could do that. We'd still, obviously, we'll make sure, like if anybody's selling, certain things, like if somebody's selling food and stuff like that, health department may have something to say about it. But for
That's
our
what I'm
business
saying.
license purposes, we can cut that out.
What was the penalty, or I didn't see anything in here about if someone was operating this and
It would
didn't have
fall
the
under,
license?
the city has a catch-all penalty. It's pretty stiff. It's a fine of up to $1,000 per day, or up to, there's also a jail sentence that's involved in that. It's not the kind of thing that if you want to know what is the possible penalty, that is the worst-case scenario. I don't ever
Generally,
think that
people
actually-
do sell food.
I'm sorry?
Generally, people do, I don't. Generally, people do sell food.
But we can't help them with that. I mean, if that's something that they're doing and the health department needs to be regulating that, we don't even have the ability to touch that. That's a
Okay,
health
I just
department
say,
issue.
generally, they do. I
Even
mean,
if
they
we
bake
s-
something and I don't. You wouldn't want to eat what I baked, but, some people do bake things and sell them or make suckers or whatever,
Even if we said that was okay, we can't say that. That's a health department issue, possibly.
Sounds like we're pretty close.
So what I'm hearing is remove the per diem, remove the fee for remove the business license requirement. And then I've also heard two people indicate that rather not have the numerical limit. My concern there was, if you try and cram too many people on too small of an area, and then I was trying to get into, well, okay, is there a density calculation that needs to be done? And then it seemed to be getting just frankly too complicated.
Yeah.
And so under the concept of trying to make sure that we don't end up with, again, not that's what this was this past couple of weekends ago, but in the concept of trying to make sure we don't end up with an inadvertent flea market, we were saying a smaller number of vendors would be a more appropriate way to address this.
So what if you made the number 30?
But then you could cram 30, I mean, I see what you're saying, but
You're
then,
gonna have a bunch at the First Baptist Church. They fill the whole parking lot. Y'all ever been? They fill the whole parking lot.
I kind of feel like it'll regulate itself with, like what Linda says.
By
with
space, it regulates itself. Because you're not gonna pay if
We
you
can
want
start
to
there, and if it becomes,
10
maybe
by
we
10.
just make sure they're out, not on the right of way and, well, some of that's already in there, so.
What if we determine how much people pay the daily rate on how many vendors they're gonna have? Like, there's a gap, like, people that have 5 vendors shouldn't pay the same amount per day as the festival, or whatever you wanna call it, that's having 50 vendors.
so kind of make it a sliding scale.
Yeah, like
based
from
upon
5 to 10, you pay this, from 10 to 20, you pay this. Because they're not gonna exactly know how many vendors are gonna show up. They're gonna have a ballpark idea, so you can give them that little.
They'll know you pay.
Yeah, they should
for your-
know, because they're gonna
But
register to be a
they're
vendor.
gonna get their permit way before somebody makes that final decision to bring their tent to the,
And that will help to regulate the size of it as well.
right, because then they can say, if we go up past 30 or 20, we gotta pay another whatever it is, $400, whatever, so they can regulate it.
I like the idea too of kind of putting maybe some language, making the business kind of responsible for the vendors too. Not totally, but kind of saying, look, it's your job to make sure everybody's complying with the ordinance here, and you'll be the one potentially getting a ticket or whatever we issue.
Yeah, and the vendor, the person holding the event, they can almost have their own citations. If they cause a problem, they get fined for what they did, then they can have them sign something that says that they're liable for covering the punishment.
Anything else?
Any more discussion? Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you.
Item C, the city center. Item 1, which is RFP results for buildings A, B, C, D, and also M.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. This is for those buildings that the mayor just mentioned, the concrete slab work. 6 companies submitted proposals for this work. Of those 6, only 2 companies responded in a manner to meet the majority of the scope that was asked for in the proposal request. Those 2 companies were Orion Construction at $1,161,776 and Cooper and Company at $1,310,000 with an ad alternate for sandwich roofing slabs for $280,000. After consulting with our construction manager with Belton Properties, I would like to recommend tonight awarding the contract for concrete and slab work for buildings A, B, C, D, and M to Cooper and Company in the amount of $1.59 million. And this also includes the ad alternate for the sandwich roofing slabs. While Cooper's cost is higher than Orion's, Cooper's proposal also includes weatherproofing, moisture protection, and that estimated cost would be significant, the savings we would realize on that. The weatherproofing, according to our construction manager with Belton, could be up near $500,000. So tonight I would recommend that we approve the contract for this work with Cooper and Company. And I'll try
Now,
to
how much
answer-
is Cooper's and how much is Beltran's?
Cooper's total is $1,590,000, and that includes the ad alternate for the sandwich roofing, which was not included in Orion Construction's bid, nor was the weatherproofing, was also not included in Orion's packet.
Orion was how much without those things?
Without that, they are $1,161,776.
So they were cheaper, Linda, but there wasn't as many things.
No.
Yeah,
Well, who is this Beltran?
They're our construction manager, Belton Properties.
And what is the concrete slab?
It's the concrete and the slab and footings for each one of those buildings. And it'll also include the weatherproofing and the sandwich
Yeah, that's what I
roofing
was-
slabs. That's, as you go up, these are 3-story buildings. There'll be a slab in between each story as you go up. The other companies didn't want to bid that work.
Yeah, the only bid I have is under Cooper.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
got
me
this in
too.
late this afternoon and didn't have a chance to get everything in together. I apologize for that. They didn't get this information to me until, 3 o'clock this afternoon.
Who
So
was the other person?
it was Orion Construction.
But don't we need to see it before we vote?
Well, if you want to put this off, we can. I've got that information. Theirs totaled 1.161 million. I've got the totals, but I can get that for you.
What was that total again? 1 point?
It was 1,161,776. And if you did compare apples to apples, it would be Cooper at $1.31 million. However, it's not, because Cooper also included all the weatherproofing, which would be an additional cost on Orion. According to our construction manager and looking at the estimate they provided to us earlier this year, you're looking at about $500,000 to $550,000 for moisture barriers and weatherproofing.
So if we said Orion with the cheaper bid, they would recommend that we do the weatherproofing at a
We would,
potential $500,000, so that would put their bid over.
yeah, it would be over 1.59 million. It would be, if they got it at,
So that'd be 1.6.
yeah.
Compared to Cooper's 1.3.
And then the
And
sandwich.
then
And the
what's,
roofing's- the
it sounds like the sandwich roofing between the floors makes sense, but how, I'm not a builder. What's the option that, like Orion, when they
They-
build, how does that work?
They didn't want to bid that.
So that would be something that we'd have to have done
That would be
by somebody
You'd
else?
have to add that to Orion's bid also.
That was another-
Okay, so that's another 280
That's correct.
from somebody else.
That is correct.
Or more.
What was
Or more.
280?
280,000 is the ad alternate that Cooper provided for doing the sandwich roofing slabs.
So it wasn't that it wasn't needed, that Ryan just didn't want to.
Orion did not want to do that work.
What, now, we don't have it because it came in late?
No, I didn't get it put in the packet because it didn't come in till, the recommendation from Belton didn't come in till this afternoon. I like it when they get it to me the Friday before a meeting, but they did not get it to me then. I got it today.
So, yeah, so all things being equal, Orion's would look more like
Yeah, if you,
1.9 compared to Cooper's 1.5.
yeah, you would have to, if you wanted to make it apples to apples, you would have to add $280,000 to Orion, which that's work that they already refused not to bid on, so they wouldn't do it anyway. We'd have to get somebody else to do it. And then you'd have to add the cost for weatherproofing, which is anywhere between $500,000 and $550,000, which is included in Cooper's bid.
Well, even if we vote on this, you'll give us the bill.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? What's the pleasure of the council?
Do
I'll
we
make
need to vote on it tonight? Will it hold anything up if we wait?
I mean,
Anything up?
It's not holding it?
Well, no, I don't know when the slabs, I don't know where they're at.
they would like to,
I'm thinking the roofing, but I don't know on the,
they would like to get going on it as soon as possible, but I mean, our next meeting's in 2 weeks, you know, if we need to
But they're
wait.
ready to start something right now.
Well, they're ready to start working with the contractors to getting, shop drawings and, all the work they gotta do before the people actually have boots on the ground out there doing it, and they can't really do that until the bid's awarded,
So it'd be holding it up.
yeah.
I feel like we're gonna make this move anyway,
Yeah,
and there's no point in holding it up.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we're gonna have to do the work. I mean, this is required, this is something we're gonna have to do for the design of the buildings.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion that we approve Cooper and Company for the building A, B, C, and D, and M concrete. All right?
Yep.
Yep.
Second.
please vote. Carries 5-0.
Very much.
Next is stream mitigation credits.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, members of council. When the project was started at the city center, we applied for a permit with the Corps of Engineers to relocate the stream. The Corps allowed this work to be completed without requiring the city to purchase mitigation credits. We were told at that time that any stream crossings that we made would require additional permitting and possibly mitigation credits would be required to be purchased. So we have 4 stream crossings, and I've got our engineer here tonight to help me with this. That would cost between $200,000 and $350,000 each if we put in arch culverts. Instead, we propose piping these crossings for approximately $50,000 to $75,000 each. However, to pipe these crossings, we will be disturbing the stream banks, and that will require us to get permits that include the purchase of stream mitigation credits. We have been told by the Corps that these stream credits will cost approximately $240,240. By piping and paying the stream credits, we should save a minimum of about $125,000 per crossing as opposed to doing the culverts. This seems to be the most economical option, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this time. And I've also got Alan Neal, our engineer from Foresight, here to handle any technical questions.
It's cheaper to pipe it and pay the mitigation credits.
That's
than do an
correct.
arch culvert and not pay the mitigation credits.
Where are you gonna pipe it?
That's correct.
We have to cross it with the road,
One of the walking paths or something
no,
like
the
that?
road,
It doesn't mean you're piping the water somewhere else, you're
Right,
putting,
right, I know.
the street.
Just 20?
No.
What road?
The
Any
new
of the
road.
Streets inside the city center.
Okay, gotcha, okay.
what's the, I guess it's a big difference in aesthetic though, too, right?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Big difference in aesthetics between a,
Yeah, I mean, the design that we have right now, we feel good with it, the looks of it. It's, you know, Alan has looked at it both ways, and we feel it would be, the economical option is to pay the credits and pipe it as opposed to doing the culverts.
So your stream would be open, and then when you got to the road, there would just be a pipe. It would go through the pipe, it would be open, and then come out on the other side.
as opposed to just a big hole, a big
Instead
opening,
of a
right?
big arched,
Thing like you see.
where the creek is running through that big arch, and then the road's up here.
And why is it cheaper than the arch? Why is it so much cheaper than the
Alan, I'll
arch?
let you handle that one.
The cost of
Building
getting that
that.
made and put in versus a round pipe
Okay,
is the difference.
He's pumped.
okay.
Like, that's an arch culvert, doesn't have a bottom in it,
Right.
follow me, versus a round pipe in the creek.
What's the difference in the cost there?
So that's
You
still
want to
the
comment
same.
on that, Alan, the difference in the two?
That won't be there, that's an arch culvert.
Yeah, no,
See, you do the arch culvert, you're not messing with the stream banks.
We'll wait.
You're bridging over it versus,
You're putting something over it, but you're not messing
but
with it.
when you put a pipe in there to run it through, then you're messing.
He's on the roll right now.
But it's still cheaper to mess with the stream banks than to do the,
yeah, it's
Bridge.
almost always cheaper to do the pipe because the pipe is a single unit that's precast. They bring it in and, you know, they can just put those sections together. When they do an arch culvert, the arch, you know, pipe is kind of self-supporting. This round is going to hold once you pack the dirt around it. With the arch culvert, you have to build a foundation on each side of the stream bank. And to keep from messing with the stream, you have to, you know, build, most of the time you end up having to have deep foundations on something that's got a decent amount of cover on it. So, you know, you're building these big concrete foundations on each side that you're pouring in place. It's not like assembling a pipe.
Can't just
together.
cut a hole out of the pipe.
No, and you gotta get firm soil, and right at creeks, there's always soft soil, so there's a lot of digging out. And then they put this arch on it, but for the arch to hold up, that's also gotta be a thicker plate than what you would have for.
About what does an arch cost?
The arches, a lot of times, I mean, it depends on the size, but like for the ones that we were using at City Center, the main arch out there is, I don't know what it is probably $300,000 to $500,000 of their cost, because it's a really
Big.
arch, and we're making it look more like a bridge, so it's gonna have some aesthetic treatments that cost more. The one that we're doing that's more minimal, that one's probably still $250,000.
will the pipes still look good though? I mean,
The pipes,
Big
well,
option.
the pipes probably won't look as good as an arch if you're gonna make it look like a bridge. But it's also going to cost you substantially less.
$500,000,
We're putting them in the less visible areas.
okay.
Like, they're the ones on the backside of the road that we checked, you know, like on the backside of the site past Building D. There were 4 culverts there, and there were the 2
I see.
on
So
the
they
main
won't show
creeks.
as much.
On the main ones, yeah.
Well, it'll be
Yeah, the
mostly
ones
just
main-
where the road, where you're using the road as opposed to the scenic.
Yeah. Not to mention the water's flowing where the arches are. The other ones are gonna be, they're really small creeks. It's those 4 branches.
And this is much cheaper than a bridge as well.
Oh, yeah. Bridge span, the arch span is kind of not the bridge to the bridge. It's in between a bridge and it's getting on up in price. So a lot of people use an arch because they don't want to spend the money on the bridge.
So this is the cheapest way to do this.
The pipe is cheapest, yeah.
And what is the mitigation we gotta pay?
What it is, when you impact the stream, you have to
Pay
buy
mitigation.
credits to the federal government permits it because they say, well, we're gonna use that money to go restore a stream somewhere else. And somebody's already restored a stream, they create a bank of credits, and then you can buy those credits.
So what is it gonna cost us?
Exact number,
240.
240.
yeah, $240,240.
For the
$40,000.
credits. But overall, he's estimating about a $500,000 savings by doing the piping of the culverts. That's what I read. Is that right, Alan? 4 culverts, $125,000 savings
What
apiece.
is, it says
Minimum.
125 to 300,000 per
Says
culvert.
minimum.
So minimally,
That'd
it's
be times 4.
$500,000. Yeah, minimally, minimally.
Yeah, you got that difference times 4. You know,
That'd be
that
a
difference is gonna be somewhere between $400,000 and $700,000, depending on what treatments we were using. But, to take 240 out of it, that's still over $250,000 in savings.
How many crossings do we have total?
How many crosses? We got 6 total.
So 2 of them are gonna be arches?
2 will be arch culverts, yes.
Okay, the main ones?
Mhm,
The ones you
on that
see.
main creek, yeah.
Gotcha.
But those will be amenities too, or it'll be a nice bridge over a flowing
Stonework and
stream,
all
yeah.
that around it.
Okay, so these are, what we're talking about are on the backside, not very visible.
They're less visible, yeah. And they're smaller creeks, so it'll look appropriate to have a pipe
Sure.
on those, have a big opening, and it's just a small ditch. It doesn't,
Little trickle, got it.
yeah.
Makes sense.
That's why you don't see them. Most of the time in like subdivisions and stuff, you see people piping because it's more economical. Pay the
Yeah.
credits.
Any other questions?
This something we need to vote on tonight?
You can vote on it tonight, or if you want to.
It's just a vote on whether we want the piping or
Well,
culvert.
you just have to approve the expenditure of buying these credits.
For the credits.
I see. So, okay, I'll make a motion to approve the expenditure in the amount of,
$240,000.
that's the amount, it's not a okay, $240,240 to do the piping for the 4 stream
Second.
crossings. Second.
Please vote.
Someone say
Carries
that.
5-0.
Thank you very much.
Bill.
Yeah.
Announcements, we have the Taste of the Fair at the fairgrounds, October 9th through the 11th, and the 16th through the 18th. And we also have the Haunted House, attraction at the fairgrounds. It's a fundraiser for the American Cancer Society, October the 9th, 10th, 16th, 17th, 23rd, 24th, 30th, and 31st. And then executive session,
I believe we do for real property leasing acquisition.
yep, have a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Please vote. Carries 5-0.
Passes 3-0. And do I have a motion to close the regular meeting?
Second. I mean,
So moved. Second.
Second.
Go.
something like that.
Thank you.